Good afternoon, students. Today we're going to discuss the concept of plagiarism. We're really going to focus on what it is, why it's bad, and how to take steps to avoid it. 1987. A new rock band by the name of Guns N' Roses came out with a song called Sweet Child of Mine. Do you believe that I wrote the lyrics for that song? I appreciate if you feel like Mr. Nelson is creative enough to come up with lyrics for an all-time great song like that, but in all reality, that wasn't my work. If I were to claim that it was my work, I would be cheating, I would be lying, and then really and truly, I want to use that to kind of segue into the concept of plagiarizing. Webster Dictionary defines plagiarize as the passing off or stealing of somebody else's words and trying to act as if it's their own. 1. To use another one's complete production without crediting the source of where that came from. 3. To commit literary theft, which means to steal entire pieces of work. Or finally, to present new and old information and passing it off as new. So if I take information, for example, if you had a movie idea and then I made a movie on it and acted like it was my own idea, you've got yourself an issue of plagiarism there. Notice on the bottom of the page, I want to, if you have any questions or ever want to learn more about plagiarism, there's a great website called www.plagiarism.org. It's where I got a lot of the information for today's presentation. All of the following are considered different forms of plagiarism. This is specifically important for you middle school and high school students who are going to be completing work on a regular basis here at Griffith. Number 1, turning in somebody else's work as if it was your own. So taking a well-written paper, throwing your name on it, and turn it into your teacher, that's a form of plagiarism. Another is copying words or ideas from somebody else without giving them credit. So using somebody else's quote or entire bodies of text. We'll get more into that in a moment, but that's a form of plagiarism. Failing to take a quote and put it in quotation marks and giving that person credit. Giving incorrect information about the source of the quotation. So when you do cite resources and you do give people credit, make sure that you're giving the correct person credit for the quote. Changing words, doing a copy and paste and then maybe changing the words but keeping the structure. A lot of students are guilty of this. They'll copy and paste from information on a website, change a few words and think that they're good to go. That's still plagiarizing because you're taking the content, you're taking the concept of the paragraph or the entire text, you're maintaining the sentence structure. That's plagiarism. And finally, copying so many words or ideas from a source that basically it makes up the majority of your work. Then you pass that work off as your own. That's not good either. There's a lot of code words or phrases that people use when they're talking about plagiarism, and these are some key terms. 1, copying. That's a simple form of copying and pasting, especially in the day and age of computers. This has become excessively easy, and unfortunately, it happens way too often, and it is illegal. It's not right. Borrowing. Obviously, people say, well, I'm just borrowing their information or I'm borrowing their quote. Without without citing resources, this is illegal as well. Cloning, taking entire pieces of work and passing it off as your own. Recycling, using old information to create new information and then passing that off as your own. And as I mentioned before, the way too easy cut, copy, and paste method where people take pieces of work that they find online and then implement it or supplement it in with their text and then try to pass it off as their own. Here are some things to remember. It's important to give credit to wherever the original source came from. And you have to make sure that you do so when you are quoting another person's words, whether they wrote it or they actually said it. So if it's a speech, for example, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and you want to use that, you need to make sure that you put that in quotes and you make sure that you cite Martin Luther King Jr. as the source. Using another person's ideas, opinions, or theories. You cannot pass off ideas as your own when somebody else has created it, whether it was orally written or passed on through text. Again, paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means summarizing or taking the words and kind of collapsing it down into a simpler form. It's still a form of plagiarism. It's important that you give resources, you make sure you cite, you give them credit for what it is that they've said, what it is that they've created, or what it is they've created as a theory. Borrowing facts, statistics, or illustrative material, so passing off facts and figures as your own. Or taking pieces from a lot of different sources and then assembling them in a new source. That is, as well, you need to make sure that you cite everything and give acknowledgement to where you got that information from. This information actually came from Indiana University. They have a great information on their website as well. The URL is posted below. Now it's time to talk about what can happen if you're caught plagiarizing. In most high school settings, it's pretty simple. If you're caught plagiarizing, you can expect a 0 on that assignment, probably a phone call home. Even possibly, some teachers will take it as far as a 0 on an entire 9 weeks. It can be serious. It gets even more serious as you get older. In the college settings, punishment can vary from a 0 in the class all the way to an expulsion from school. We'll talk about that more in a moment. And in the professional world, there's a number of levels. Number 1, you can find yourself in court. Number 2, you can find yourself unemployed. And number 3, you can find yourself blackballed, which means you can get a reputation for being somebody who plagiarizes. We're going to take more a look at that in a few minutes. In 1994, in the fall of 94, I enrolled at Valparaiso University to earn my bachelor's degree. And in every assignment I completed for the next 4 years, I had to write this phrase. This is the Valparaiso University Honor Code. This is my way of saying every piece of work that I completed while I was at Valpo was not plagiarized, was not copied from somebody else, was not given to me from somebody else, nor did I steal information without citing sources. Valparaiso University has gone as far as to create an honor council, just like a lot of colleges have, and they spell out very, very clearly the expectations of their students while they are there. This extends from pieces of work that you turn in to just simple homework and worksheets that you complete, labs that you finish, quizzes and tests, final exams, you name it, the honor code is in place. If you are caught cheating at Valparaiso University or you're suspected of cheating, you go in front of the honor council and you plead your case. If they find you guilty, you can be removed from the class with a 0 and no refund of tuition, or you can be actually expelled from school. It's very, very important in college to understand what plagiarizing is and how seriously it is taken. I know not everybody's going to college, but still in the workforce, in the real world, on a regular basis, we see situations where plagiarism hits the headlines. Some of these headlines are ripped off of the website recently, as late as September the 29th, 2014. These are actually people who are running for office that are being accused of plagiarism. Again, plagiarism is a black mark on your name, and you can find it very, very difficult to find employment or have anybody vote for you if you're running for office or you're seeking employment. So even in the workforce, plagiarism is highly frowned upon. The idea of stealing other people's work is distasteful for everybody involved. So let's talk about how we actually avoid plagiarism. Now, I want you to understand that this is just the beginning of this conversation, and I encourage you to listen to your English teachers and make sure that you use them as a resource if you have any questions. But we are wanting to kind of get this, highlight this issue as a concern. So, some basic guidelines. Number 1, make sure you cite your sources. Make sure that you give credit where credit is due, whether it be a book, a magazine, or a website. Make sure that you properly cite your sources and you give credit to the people who actually originally said that information or wrote that information. Plan your paper effectively and then support it with quotations. Make sure that you don't just start copying and pasting off of websites and trying to pass it off as your own. Be clear about who said it. You can get it. You can get in trouble for simply stating that somebody incorrectly stated it. You have to make sure that if it came from a speech, who wrote the speech, who executed the speech, you have to make sure to cite correctly the information and where it came from. Avoid the copy and paste. Avoid thinking that you're just going to copy some information, paste it, change a few words, and pass it off as your own. Teachers have access to some really, really great websites and some software programs that they simply can run your report through it, and that report will tell you where the words came from, which words were probably plagiarized, and what percentage of the entire text was plagiarized. This is very, very important to understand that it's as easy as it is for people to plagiarize, it's just as easy to get caught. So you have to understand the repercussions and what can happen if you are caught plagiarizing information. As we wrap up this presentation, I just want you to understand a little bit better what plagiarism is, what forms that it comes in, and what can happen if you do plagiarize or if you're caught plagiarizing. Really and truly, here are some key guidelines. Number one, cite your sources and give credit where credit is due. Number two, make sure that you plan out any papers that you are writing, and then support your thoughts, your stance with quotes, cited sources, information that comes from other places. Just make sure that you have a resource page where you cite where that information came from. Number three, plagiarism, as much as it has become easy for students to do so, it's become just as easy for you to get caught. And again, as you get older, the punishment becomes more and more severe. And we don't want anybody to have to stand in front of an honor council and have to defend themselves. We want you to understand here and now what it is and how it is, and how to make steps to avoid what plagiarism can do to you if you're caught. Here are my resources. This is where I got the information. Again, plagiarism.org is a fantastic website to look up information. And if you go on to most college websites, they're going to have information about what their honor council is, what their expectations are for their students, and again, how to cite sources and to make sure that you do things the right way. Have a wonderful day. Again, use your English teachers as a resource, and please take steps to avoid plagiarism in the future. Go Panthers!